Russia sues Google for LGBTQ plus propaganda. A Russian court fined Alphabet's Google 3 million rubles for failing to delete YouTube videos it said promoted LGBT propaganda and false information about Russia's military campaign in Ukraine. Over the last year, Moscow has levied dozens of fines against Western tech companies as part of a drive to ramp up control over what Russian internet users see online. Russian prosecutors said Google had refused to remove several videos posted on YouTube, including one from a blogger deemed a foreign agent by Moscow about how same-sex couples raise children and about the LGBTQ plus community in St. Petersburg. The Russian subsidiary of Alphabet's Google filed for bankruptcy last year after authorities seized its bank accounts, following a December 2021 fine of 7.2 billion rubles, which is $92.6 million, over what Russian authorities said was the company's repeated failure to delete content. Apart from passing strict censorship laws, shortly after it dispatched troops to Ukraine, Russia has also strengthened its laws against what it calls the promotion of LGBT propaganda. Under the new law, any action or the spreading of any information that is considered an attempt to promote homosexuality in public, online, or in films, books, or advertising could incur a heavy fine.
Well, what do we think about what's going on in Russia?
Maybe DeSantis will download some of the verbiage of that and put it into another bill.
You know,
It sounds very familiar.
These fines alone could probably solve the houselessness issue across the world, but
they better.
That's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
But also, I kind of think about how they're using this as swaying, the gay propaganda. But you know how many straight movies I watched growing up, and I'm not straight today? There's no straight agenda. There's no gay agenda.
See, as we've discussed, that is a scientific fact, so therefore we will reject
so
it.
let's reject it. Right, I apologize.
No science.
Science is irrelevant.
And, it's funny because, Russia is obviously that most of their technology is focused on hacking. So, as opposed to the rest of the world that's trying to use technology for something that's somewhat progressive. And it's very hard to limit the progress that's happening in technology, even to limit, what they have access to online. I mean, you looked at, I think Iran, there was a story in 60 Minutes how they were all using their own satellites in their house to get, access to the internet out of their country. I mean, there's going to be access to this, and, Putin is desperate to squash everything.
I'm reading a very good book that talks about authoritarianism and how you get there. And one of the big messages in the book is that authoritarians begin to try to limit your access to information and your ability to discuss and see alternatives. And the reason authoritarians do that is because they basically want to dumb you down. And when they dumb you down, you question less, and majorities focus on marginalized minorities, and it focuses on the hate of the marginalized minority versus the hate of the authoritarian. And just broadly, whether you agree with that conclusion or not, just the simple fact that we would consider that and discuss it helps fight organizations and places like Putin and Russia, because their stories about Ukraine are clearly a lie. You can't call it a war. We don't have queer people in our country of 170 million people, and it's propaganda if you mention gay or show a rainbow flag. Now, all of those are clearly ridiculous standards, except in Russia. So the author's theme seems to be plausible. And the one way that we can get to the plausibility of that is to have conversation, which is exactly what you can't have in Russia, which is how you get to an authoritarian.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if I was there, daily or something, reading the newspaper, such as it is, how much of an emphasis they're putting on stuff like this right now. I mean, they're getting their asses handed to them in Ukraine. I'm reading all sorts of dumbfounding stories about their inability to carry out offenses. I'm wondering,
emptying prisons for soldiers,
right? And videos of soldiers running from the front lines. I mean, it's just inexplicable to me. What's the future of Russia if somebody bigger than Ukraine decides to take them on right now? Yeah. But they're worried about LGBT issues.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, in terms of a cross-reference, because it gives me the opportunity, we're worried about a teacher having a picture on her desk of her queer partner, as opposed to focusing on catastrophic insurance rates in Florida.
Right.
How is it different than what you just said is going on in Russia?
Right.
I don't see much difference.
No.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show from Happening Out Television Network. In the model of PBS and NPR, we educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of the LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the stories going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.